This is The Gorge. It's a podcast where my friend Sara and I gorge ourselves in overanalyzing a topic, and The Gorge is brought to you by Ko-fi. That's ko-fi.com/thegorge. You can help us out by giving us money that will allow us to do more things and do better content more often. Sara,
eloquent.
Sara, what are we talking about this week?
This week we somehow managed to pry ourselves away from the deep, dark pit of Fire Emblem Three Houses that has swallowed, I think, the entire internet. Or at least my entire Twitter. We pulled ourselves away to play 1980X, just for PC, that I'm aware of. A nifty little indie game that came out, last month. And is pretty short, and we're gonna talk about it.
Yeah.
Because I feel this is the first time I have just been left, utterly cold by a game.
I think that, so I heard people talking about this game, and first off, I mean, on the positive note, this is some of the best pixel art I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, I guess that is a big bonus, real quick, is that it has some of the most amazing arcade-style pixel work I've seen in an indie title. It is immaculate.
This stuff looks like if you ever see a pixel artist and it's just oh, here is a single object I drew.
Yes.
It's an entire game built around that. Every single mini game in this thing is fucking immaculate.
Yeah, it is. It is very much. It's interesting because the games that this is referencing didn't look like that, Cruisin' USA or whatever it was called.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't look that good. It's definitely. I guess this will be a big topic of discussion for the evening. It is how you remember them looking, not so much what they actually looked like.
Yeah, yes and no. Because, obviously these are, a huge step above, what you were actually going to look at in an arcade. But these are definitely, if you look at a lot of, arcade games back in the day, they were a lot better looking than home consoles were capable of.
Right, yeah.
So that's, and I kind of dig that. This isn't oh, this is a Super Nintendo game and it looks like this. This is no, this is an arcade game. Yeah, and you really feel that, and I appreciate that. But yeah, this is definitely what you remember these games looking like.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Especially the driving sequence, which is the highlight of the game.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, the driving sequence is easily the highlight of the game. The rest of the stuff is, fine. There's some really... the art is just stand out. That is, despite how cold this game left me, the art and the music is absolutely phenomenal. There's the last mini game, the sort of Megaten style game, I guess, the original Shin Megami Tensei stuff. Mm-hmm. That old fashioned first person kind of exploration style title. The pixel work in that is breathtaking. You look at it and you're just wow, it is made head to toe of beautiful art. Unfortunately, on the surface of something that's pretty shallow.
Yeah,
so
it's this game is visually and audio is beautiful. The music is great. The voice acting is really good.
Yeah, the single voice actor is extremely good. You definitely get the notion that it's supposed to be kind of ambiguous, androgynous, the kid could be a girl or a boy, and you kind of imprint yourself onto that character, and yeah, for the fact that it was just one person basically carrying the whole game, the voice acting is pretty dang good for an indie title. Yeah, absolutely.
The problem is that this game is an hour and a half long.
An hour and a half long.
And it does not have much to say with the topic it's trying to talk about.
Yeah.
I wrote down a lot because it's a weird thing where I have a lot to say about how this doesn't have a lot to say.
Good. I'm glad you do, because I was literally, I was in like the second game, and I was just like, oh no, yeah. I don't think I like it.
It's so the thing that carried me through most of it too is also that the games play really good.
Yeah, the games do play very well. You're right.
I really liked Beating Heart, the beat 'em up style. The Runaway is definitely the standout. Kill Screen was really cool.
Yes, it looked cool. I mean, like, again, visually, it just looks so cool.
Yeah.
And that carries it a really long way.
Mm-hmm. Like, I wanted to play more of, like, Beating Heart. I wanted to do, like, 4 more levels of that. That
needed more screens.
I wanted more screens of Beating Heart and way less screens of Shadowplay.
Yeah, the problem with Shadowplay is that, and I guess this is just, like, a personal thing, but it is a quick sword game with really, really stellar pixel art, and I'm sitting here the whole time going, I could be playing Katana Zero right now.
Right?
You know? What if Katana Zero didn't have any depth? Huh. Yeah, that was what it was, unfortunately. So.
I just didn't like it because I was bad at it. I kept getting my attack and jump button mixed up, and I'm like, oh, come on.
I did fine at it. It's just that I was just bored. I mean, that was a huge problem with it. Mm-hmm. And like really Kill Screen too. Was that I was like, by that point, and I guess the problem is that by that point, by the last game, it had lost me, like, utterly. Mm-hmm. I was just like, let's just get this over with.
Right, right.
Which is like bad. Mm-hmm. I don't need to tell you that that's like bad. At this point, I was just like, get it over with. Like, just give me a bunch of enemies in a row or something, so I don't have to keep wandering around. You know, games don't look like this anymore for a reason, especially Kill Screen, because it was giving me a headache after a while.
Yeah, so the biggest problem I had with Kill Screen, I don't know if this affected you too, but, like, you know how, so, like, the walls are that, like, grid, like, vector grid thing? Mm-hmm. Whenever you would attack, or, like, you would get hit, the grid pattern would shake.
Yes.
And it looked like you were moving forward or backward, not that, like, it wasn't like a screen shake. It was like, wait, am I sliding, like, away from where I was? What?
Right. Yeah, major headache through all of Kill Screen, because that's, I have, like, zero experience with those kind of games, especially. And so the whole time I'm playing this, I'm like, did people just play video games like this back in the day? I can't even imagine.
Well, I mean, like, what's it? Tempest is the go-to for, like, the vector art thing, like the old school vector games, and I don't like Tempest at all.
Oh, God.
But, yeah. But, like, I tried to think, like, okay, so the thesis statement I wrote down for this episode is remember the 80s can only carry you so far.
God, that is the truth in this game. This
and Ready Player One are both falling into the same pit of, like, no, the 80s were the only good decade.
Yeah.
It was only the 80s.
And I feel like the problem is that this game leans, like, way too heavily into my life sucks and video games are my only refuge. Mm-hmm. Like, I get it, but also, after a certain point, it's so, like, grating, especially because I am, like, a grown woman now, and this is told from the perspective of, like, somebody who is easily, 14?
He's talking about, like, when I was a kid, and I'm like, you're a kid
now!
You're in high school, kid! Your name is the kid!
Your name is the kid, and you're smoking outside your old video store. Like, come on. Like, easy, edgelord. It'll be all right. Like, I guess his dad left them, or his parents divorced.
There's, like, a few, like, hints of, like, really good, like, lines of dialogue and stuff, and I made a note of them. Okay. There was the one I really, really liked, where it's where he's walking, like, down the street, and it's it's kind of like showing like different buildings and stuff. And
Yeah.
he has one where he's like, yeah, my dad and I would go to the pizza place and we'd go to the video store until we stopped. And when he says that, he's walking by like an abandoned factory.
Yes.
And so it's like, oh, his dad lost his job or something. Like, you know, the factory shut down in this small town.
Right. And then my dad lost his job, and now
Yeah.
we don't rent video games and do movie night anymore. And yeah.
That I was like, oh, that's good framing and stuff. The other one I liked, and this leads into another point where we're talking about how, like, you know, we get it, kid. Like, come on.
Come on.
It's the scene where he's like talking about like the crowd at the arcade, and it's that really great, again, fucking amazing pixel art.
Oh god, I know. That's that first shot of all the different people in like the basement arcade is just like,
and
mwah.
you get these guys, like, you see there's one guy and he's in like a button-up shirt and like tucked in with khakis, and it's like he just came from the office, and it's like, and he's talking to like a guy in like a leather jacket, and there's someone with a mohawk, and it's like the kid's talking about like, oh yeah, it's not just the nerds and geeks, it's the punks, it's the smokers and all that.
Yeah, of course.
And it's like, oh yeah, that's like, yeah, it's not just like, you know, this isn't like the video games are for nerds thing. It's like, oh yeah, all the social outcasts of any group would hang out in here. And then I looked at it, and I looked at this crowd, and I'm like, I understand, I kind of understand the moral outrage against arcades in the 80s now. Because think about that shot of like all of these like fucking like degenerates.
Right.
And take away the arcade machines. And
of course.
Would you let your kid go to that place?
Well, that is the thing though, and this was actually something I saw? It was like a video from some guys who went to Evo, and for some reason they were in a laundromat, and they're like, they got a Tekken machine here. And I'm like, yeah, y'all, that's how we used to have to play video games. We didn't just have like an arcade. You would literally go play video games at like a bar, like while your parents were eating like wings and watching fucking cowboys or whatever. You would be over there playing video games because like, especially in the suburbs, because he makes a big point of living in the suburbs. Which whoopty frick, you live in the suburbs.
Yeah.
Sorry. God, I think I'm too old for this. I think I'm too old for this one. But yeah, in the suburbs, you didn't really have, like, arcades. There was, like, one dedicated arcade in the mall. And that was it. And otherwise, you just played video games where you played them. And it's like, yeah, you know, like, some of these places probably weren't, like, super kid-friendly. I get it. But, like, you know, it was also just that old-fashioned, this is new technology, it's eating my kids' brains. And it never went away!
And, you know, also the funny thing, like, leading to that point, it's like, yeah, that's kind of happening to the kid right now. Like, the kid's talking, like, video games are my only escape, and, like, it's the only thing I could do is dive into these. And he talks about the punk girl at his school who drives her cool car.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, yeah, the kid literally is just using video games as a coping mechanism and ignoring his problems.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. I get it. I get that, like, you're a teenager, and after a certain point when you're a teenager, you're just kind of, like, helpless to the whims of, like, all the adults around you. Like, yeah, that's a normal feeling when you're 14. I sure experienced that feeling a lot. But, like, at the same time, it is so aimless. It's, like, I was reading reviews for this thing after I finished it, and it's all like, this is a coming-of-age story. And I'm like, no, it's not.
Is it? No.
No, it's not. It does not seem like he actually, like, learned anything. Like,
it's every like the in-betweens of every arcade game has like a little snippet of dialogue, like a little scene, and it's like, oh, this is the start of something.
Yeah. And
but
then it just ends.
Then it's like, so like the punk girl is a perfect example. Like, he talks about this punk girl. She has a cool car and she drives away from him.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, like, is he gonna find like make a new friend? Like, is he gonna see her at the arcade later and she's really cool? And then she just stops showing up. She doesn't.
It's like, okay, so what was the point of that? That you are a 14-year-old and you had a crush on the cool punk girl who had a car?
Like,
duh. Yeah, everybody did.
Is that going to, like, it doesn't lead anywhere. Like, it shows him, like, he talks about, like, he goes up into a treehouse, and he's, like, talking about how, like, when they were young, it was easy to hang out with your friends and go on imaginary adventures and all that. And it's like, well, who are his friends? Like, are they going to...
Where are your friends now?
Yeah, where did they go? Like, did they move on and they don't care about video games? Like, are you bummed out because your hobbies and interests diverged and now you feel kind of listless because you don't have anything in common anymore?
I mean, that's a story that you could pursue, and then you didn't.
Yeah, and then it didn't. Like he talks about, like, I want to go to the city, I want to see the city life, but it's like there's why? What is there for you?
Yeah, and part of it is just like that, again, that teenage feeling of, well, anywhere is better than here. But I mean, you kind of have to explore that. Like, you have to explore those feelings, not just like put them out in the open and be like, that sure is how he feels.
It's one thing when you're like a real life person and you feel listless and distant and you don't know where you're going. But when you are writing a fictional story that has a start, middle, and end, it can't be that. Your character needs to have, like, a drive.
I would, and not like a metaphorical drive where you're driving a car in a video game. But like an actual... This game, you say, like, this game, like a story has a beginning, middle, and end. This game doesn't have an ending. It just kind of stops. Like, it's just like, here's the beginning, and there's the middle. Oh man, some fucked up stuff happened in this video game. Now it's over.
Yeah, it's...
Cool, thanks. I love the messenger.
I know.
That's how the messenger ends too, y'all. Like, you can't keep relying on that. You can't keep putting out your cool pixel art action game and being like, to be continued. I mean, I know Katana Zero has, like, an abrupt ending, but also it has, like, 3 hours of gameplay. Come on.
I put that in my notes too, is... Katana Zero and Omen Sight also had really abrupt endings, but the difference is that they had, like, a compelling plot and an interesting protagonist, and I wanted to see where they would go. Like,
and it, yeah.
I walked away from Omen Sight being like, that can't be it. That you can't end it there. What? I need more. I need to know what happens. And with Katana Zero, I'm like, oh shit, we're just getting started with this. There's still way more we can do with this.
But the difference between, like, this game and Omen Sight and Katana Zero is that Omen Sight and Katana Zero, they have really abrupt endings. But if those games had sold like trash and we weren't getting any DLC, it would still be like a complete game. You would still have, like, a story that has a beginning, middle, and end. And it's like, this is a really abrupt ending, but it can still be read as, like, something kind of metaphorical. Like, oh, in Omen Sight, it's like, no, you can't save the whole world. Sorry, that's just how it be, And in Katana Zero, it's like, it leaves it kind of ambiguous. You got a full video game out of both of those games, and in Katana Zero, it's just like, hey, if it ended here, then it's like, all this, like, the little girl was in his head, and all of this violence is just gonna keep on going forever. It's like, that's fucked up. But that's still an ending.
Yeah.
Those are still endings. This game does not have an ending. It just kind of stops.
Yeah.
It's like, man, some fucked up stuff happened in the arcade, and then all the heroes came and joined him at the end of the game, and it's like, cool. What is this leading to?
What does it mean? The thing is that, okay, so you get with the Runaway and with Killscreen, obviously, is it like, oh, these games are metaphors for the things he's going through, right? Like, the Runaway is perfect because it has a lead above the girl has a cool car, and then you're playing a car game and you're driving towards the city, and then Killscreen obviously has a lot to do with fighting with his mom and family home troubles and stuff. But what does Beating Heart represent? What does Out of the Void represent? What does Shadowplay represent? I'm not saying they don't represent anything, because they probably...
By the way, sorry, we gotta stop real quick. Out of the Void was so bland, I actually forgot about it. until you said it. I was like, what was... You literally were listing all these games. I'm like, which one was out of... Oh, right, Gradius.
There was a Gradius one. And, like, yeah, okay. That one did suck because, like, you didn't get a lot of cool power-ups.
And you're really slow.
Yeah.
You're just, like, puttering along. Like, and it was really easy and just slow and boring. And I completely, literally, as soon as I was done with it, I forgot about it until you said it. And I was like, oh, right, there's another game in this game. It's
like, I'm sure they were supposed to stand in for something, but, like, the metaphor was either too abstract or too hidden that I'm like, it didn't... What did these stand for? What do these... You know, the Shadowplay has, like, a big, giant, encroaching monster that devours everything in its path.
Right. What does that mean?
What does it mean? What does that represent?
I don't need it spelled out, but I actually do need you to give me some more context than nothing.
Yeah, I kind of need, like, a hint. Like, maybe it looks like something we saw in the last cutscene.
Like, is it his dad? Is it, like, the looming awfulness of, like, him and his mom being alone? I don't know. Are you gonna, like, give me a hint or something? Because, like, right now I have nothing to go off of. I guess, like, Beating Heart is, like, that rebellious fighting teen phase, but he's taking it out on, like, a video game instead of, like, actually fighting in the streets. And, you know, there's that guy at the end of Beating Heart who's, like, sitting on a wall and just watching it happen. Is that supposed to be him?
Yeah, who does that represent?
It's just, like, you have to give me more context than just, like, a couple of what you think is snappy dialogue. And it is not snappy dialogue. Most of it is dreadful.
Most of it is just, like, the most cliche, generic 80s rebellion dialogue I've ever heard. Like,
oh, God, yeah.
The opening bit where he's talking about, like, watching the headlights, counting the headlights driving into the city.
Yeah, I also really like Field of Dreams. Chill out. Okay?
Or,
like, come on.
Like, just, like, think of any fucking coming-of-age movie from 1981 to 1989, and this game quotes one line of dialogue at least.
It's amazing that he didn't have a dog at some point. That would have just, like, really finished the meta of just, like, the whole, like, man, remember 80s movies about kids? Like, come on. There are certain I couldn't quote any of them to you now because a lot of them just, like, went right through me.
A lot of them just became mush.
They're just mush. They're all just, like, the most generic, like, unhappy teenager, like, you know, like your most standard unhappy white kid living in the suburbs and, oh, my parents divorced. Like, whoop-de-fuck, everybody's parents are divorced.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Like, sorry. But after a certain point, it's just like, my eyes are glazing over, and I'm like, what are you trying to tell me? Game? Like, oh, he takes refuge in video games? Cool, just like every other video game about video games for the last 20 years.
It's the same, it's literally the exact same thing as Ready Player One, and the only difference between this game and Ready Player One is that based on the art and the music and the voiceover, Ready Player One is just cynical, right? It's the most shallow, cynical, like, remember He-Man? I watched all of Thundercats.
Remember Back to the Future?
My car is Back to the Future DeLorean, but Kit from Knight Rider is in it. And look, it's the Iron Giant. Remember the Iron Giant?
Yeah, it's abysmal.
Remember Star Wars?
Don't you love a Star War? Hey, do you remember The Shining?
What?
I remember The Shining.
What if, like, oh, there's that bit in the actual book where he's like, oh yeah, people would gather for miles to watch me and my friend debate Star Trek.
I'm gonna throw
And then
up.
I wanted to die.
God, just to like take a tangent right now, however bad you think Ready Player One the movie is, the book is like 1,000 times more abysmal. Holy shit.
There are so many times I've seen like screen caps of like text on a page.
You don't even think it's real.
And I'm like, this is a parody, right? There's no way like this is the actual dialogue.
This is photoshopped. It cannot be real.
This is just like someone making fun of it, right? This isn't actually in the book, and then it's like, no, that's a page.
No, it's for real in there. Yeah, it's horrible.
That's a page from the book. And it's like, so that feels like really cynical and really just like, no, the only way, like gatekeeping, the only way to be a nerd is to just know all the trivia on the Wikipedia articles.
Yeah, exactly.
This 1980X, I will give it this. I don't think it's that. I just think they aren't very good at writing. I think there's a lot of genuine care put into this. Like there's a lot of love. The pixel art and the voice direction and the sound is all like, these are really, really good. The presentation is amazing in this game.
Yeah.
And they clearly have a lot of love for these movies and for these games. Mm-hmm. I just think they're not very good at writing.
They're extremely bad writers. It's true.
I don't think it's cynical or malicious. They don't have the talent for it, and so they
don't
rely
have a writer on staff.
They rely on heavily on a lot of the cliches of these products, and the difference is like going from remember Thundercats to hey, remember Thundercats?
Yeah, right.
But like that doesn't excuse it as a flaw, but it's just that's what I feel like, because like this could have been really fucking good.
It could have been great, because there's a lot of like I said, there's a lot of love and care put into the art of this game, and especially in like the tone. Because I mean, truly, The Runaway is like the standout moment of this game. And honestly, if this game was a little bit cheaper, I would tell you to buy it just to experience The Runaway, because I do think it is a really extremely potent moment in an otherwise just kind of middling indie title, because it kind of realizes this dream we all had as kids when we would play stuff like Cruisin' USA or any, good racing game, which was, I really don't want to race, I just kind of want to tool around, like I just want to drive fast and enjoy the atmosphere.
Right.
And that is what The Runaway is. After a certain point, you hit that one checkpoint, it gives you 200 and however many seconds to just kind of like drive, and you get that great feeling of like coasting along at night. In the summer, you got all your windows down, and there's, city lights in the distance, and it's very peaceful. You've got music kind of playing, but not too loud, and you're just coasting along, and you're like, it's that feeling, like, perfectly captured in a video game. Like, clearly there's a lot of love and a lot of thought put into the art and atmosphere of this game, and I mean, yeah, The Runaway is fantastic just for that alone. But, I mean, one sequence in an hour-long game does not a great video game make.
The Runaway is couched between a very bland Gradius, like Galaxia Gradius ripoff, and Shadowplay, which I didn't like.
Wait, what is Shadowplay even supposed to be? Like,
I think it's
about, like, what's it kind of cribbing from?
I don't know. When I saw it, I'm like, oh, it's Ninja Gaiden. But then it's not. It's an auto runner.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there's something similar to it, but like, when I felt like, I was like, ooh, I got to play Final Fight. Now I get to play Ninja Gaiden, and then it wasn't Ninja Gaiden, and I was like, yeah. But the Runaway is, I think, one of the standouts because of I don't know if they intended this, but it doesn't matter because the author's dead. This is back in the 80s, and like we talked about earlier, and we talk about it in the podcast a lot, video games are magic. And
video games are magic.
N64 cartridges are haunted. And because no one knows how video games work, we don't know what they are.
Every PS1 disc has the soul of a dead child in it. We know this.
Yeah. The Runaway is really, really cool because when you put yourself in that mindset of back then, and you're like, you don't know how games are programmed, you don't realize that the city itself is not an attainable goal.
Right.
You see it in the distance, and you think eventually you'll get there eventually. because you don't have the perspective to say like, no, this isn't like an object in physical space, it's a background. And
it's a matte painting.
Yeah, the foreground is just procedurally generating new track to go on, and you will never get that. But like the game is talking about, like, you want to get there. He wants to get to the city. He wants to get out of his life, but because he's just sitting there playing video games, you can't get to the city in the video game.
Yeah, you will never ever get there.
How is that for a well-written metaphor for a thing?
That's pretty good. It's like, man, you were so close. You're just so close. Ugh.
If every one of these games were tied to the plot the way The Runaway is, you would have a fucking fantastic game, even if it was an hour and a half long.
You know, yeah, of course. And it doesn't, I mean, like, video games don't necessarily need to be long to be good. I prefer my video game to have more substance in it when I spend money on it, because I'm a cheap individual and I'm trying to get wring as much value out of every dollar as I can. But a good video game can be expensive, and short, and still be good. Like, those are not exclusive.
Like, even Katana Zero is like 3 hours long. That's not long.
No, it's not. But you can also replay Katana Zero.
Yeah, you can.
1,000 times.
Yeah.
You're not going to replay 1980X.
No, you're not. There is only one thing you can do in this game.
Right.
Like, it's just going forward. Like, this game does the thing that, like, we talked about with, like, David Cage games, and I hate saying that because I don't think this is nearly as bad as a David Cage game.
No, of course not. But there is that feeling.
But the comparison of, like, this game is really good at creating melancholy scene. You know, it's the kid, and he's sitting in his treehouse, and it's like he misses his friends, he misses his youth, even though he's 14.
Right.
And but like he doesn't have that camaraderie, that connection anymore with his friends. That's sad. But then the scene ends, and I don't care anymore because I didn't have anything to connect me to it.
Right, it's just like a kid being sad in his treehouse. Like, are you gonna, like, give me more than that? Is this supposed to... If this is just a study in, like, the melancholia of being trapped in the suburbs in the 1980s, that's cool, but also, that's not enough. like, there... Even then, still, there's not enough, like, context or enough, like, stage setting to really make that work. Like, Night in the Woods is kind of ultimately like a game about the existential horror of going back to your hometown and really not having any goals in life, you know? Like, yeah, it's about, like, Lovecraftian shit, but that's not what it's actually about.
Yeah, Night in the Woods is a fucking great comparison for this. Because, like, it's basically the same story. It's being trapped in the place you grew up, and circumstances mean that you never really can leave.
Right.
You don't learn any skills in the town that can allow you to actually make it outside of the town.
Right, yeah.
And it's the same thing here. The kid is trapped in this town. He can't leave. He doesn't have the means or the ability to go anywhere.
Right.
So he buries himself in escapism.
Right.
The problem is that May is a much more fleshed out character.
Yeah, way more relatable and way more just like, at times frustrating and at times like really funny and endearing. So you get this sense of like a real person who you could be friends with, even though they might kind of drive you crazy sometimes, like with their irresponsibility and their like selfish disregard for other people's feelings and occasionally their own feelings. Like, hey, you get a sense that May is like a person. And the kid is just a kid. They're just a kid. I mean, that's their name. Like, we don't have any idea of how their life kind of goes. They just go to school, have a crush on a girl.
The kid just feels like really selfish and like disrespectful and like kind of a jerk that I don't really want to connect to because like I didn't get anything endearing out of the kid that wasn't, oh, they like video games.
Yeah.
Like...
I like video games too, but that doesn't mean I like everybody on Twitter who likes video games, you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's... this game is just like the first 5 minutes of a coming of age story.
Yeah.
And then you never flesh out that character
anytime you have like your teenage character whose like biggest drama is that their mom told you they're grounded, I'm immediately like, okay, so we all got grounded from video games by our mom growing up. That's like part of being a kid, is occasionally getting grounded from video games. Like,
now, I mean, I'm just thought this now, like, maybe this is the first 5 minutes of the coming of age movie. And maybe like, in a year, we'll get, like, a 12-hour fucking compilation thing that completely fleshes this character out.
Maybe.
But, I mean, for one thing, it's hard for me to really care, because they didn't make a good first impression on me now.
Right.
Like, again, comparing to, like, Katana Zero or Omen Sight, where it's like, oh, I really cared about what was going on before you threw the to be continued at me.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I already cared before you were like, hey, look forward to the ending of these games and DLC. Sorry, we ran out of time. You know? Like, even then, I cared because you did the setup for all this stuff. And it's like, okay, I will play future installments because I care enough about these characters and what's going on that I want to see what happens next. That's not the case in 1980X.
So, like, the big question I have is, like, okay, you get hints that, like, the kid's not satisfied with their life. Like, they're angry, and the whole point of Kill Screen is the set up the rebellion, right? Like, it's the game is like this haunting maze, and the final boss is yelling at you, and it's telling you to go to your room. You're grounded, you know. Blah blah, all this stuff, and it's like, clearly it like the Runaway, this is the only one that like stands out as like a metaphor for like a real world application thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, at the end of it, it's them at the arcade, and they're standing up, and they are empowered by the protagonists of the games they've been playing.
Right.
What are they fighting?
Yeah, what is the conflict here? I have no idea what the drama here is.
It's like, I'm gonna stand up and fight against what?
Your mom?
Like,
your mom who grounded you from video games? Is that what you're gonna try and tell me, game?
Like,
really?
What? The whole point of, like, obviously it's fine to draw inspiration and encourage and all that, and like important lessons from fictional protagonists. That's kind of why a lot of these things exist in the first place. They're designed to inspire people, right?
Right.
But they have to inspire you to actually do something. They can't...
Yeah.
You can't just say, I'm gonna rebel, but, like, rebel against what? What are you dissatisfied that you are...
There's, like, no indicator that, like, his mom is, like, a bad mom.
Right?
You know?
Or that he's, like, bullied in school.
Right.
He like, there's no conflict of, like, oh, they get picked on because they like video games, or, oh, their mom is cruel ever since the divorce, or, like, you know, there's anything.
There's not even, like, an indicator that, like dad left and I'm never gonna see it. Like, did your dad walk out on you? Is that, like, the source of your drama? I don't know. Like, you're not telling me.
Are you mad at your dad for leaving? Like, do you want to, like, stand up to confront what happened there? Like, what? What are you rebelling against?
I don't understand.
What is your cause?
His cause is that he wants to play video games and mommy won't let him.
Is your cause to fight to get the rights back to go back to the arcade?
You gotta fight for your right to hang out in the seedy basement with a bunch of weirdos, I guess. Party!
It doesn't, like... This game is built off of a lot of setup and then zero payoff. Zero.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I said, it's so steeped in cliche and metaphor that it forgot to actually have, like, a narrative, like an overlying Like,
oops, all metaphor.
like, and you know, it would be one thing if it's like, oh, this is just, here is a bored kid who drowns themselves in video games, and
sure.
that's the framing narrative to play all of these throwback titles, you know?
Sure, absolutely, that'd be fine.
That'd be fine. It's just kid is frustrated with school, they're frustrated with home, so they go to the arcade, and here is the fun arcade game that we programmed.
Right.
And it's kind of like, oh, it's a framing device to kind of make you empathize a little bit. But, like, when you slap a to be continued, and when you have the kid, like, I'm gonna stand up and continue.
To do what?
To do what? You didn't give me anything.
What's the drama between you and your mom in that video game at the end?
Why?
I don't understand.
Like, what? Why are you fighting? Why are you and your mom arguing?
Yeah.
Is it because
there's no context for it at all?
Like, there's no, like, I don't know, maybe I forgot, but, like, there's no point where, like, the mom, like, the mother AI is, like, you know, why are you failing your classes? Or, like,
right.
You know, why are you spending all your money? Or,
yeah.
What is this crowd you're hanging out with? It's just go to your room. You're in trouble.
Yeah. Like, there's no... And I get it, sure. Sometimes parents are assholes and they just ground you out of nowhere. But, like, that's a thing you also could set up. Like, hey, my mom is just kind of an asshole.
Yeah.
And does things like that. And it keeps me away from my single, like, escapist fantasy that I have in my shitty suburban town. Cool. There's a narrative.
Yeah.
You didn't do that.
Why wasn't there not, like, I don't know, the arcade owner who is this cool college guy, and like, oh, this guy's my hero and I look up to him, and that's a thing, that's a character, that's an idea, a development that can happen.
There's like a character trait, you know, those things that people have. Instead
of just being like really melancholy and bitter about everything for no reason. It's like that fucking old comic of Namor, like, walking around and being like, oh, human life, a dog, a barrel, ridiculous. Like, what are you mad about?
What are you so angry about? You gotta give me some context. Look, I get it. I grew up in a shitty suburban town. I was bored all the time. I understand. But also, like, you gotta give me some context for your drama, man, because, like, everybody's got it. You gotta give me more to relate and care about you.
They've made a character who is so fucking realistic that he's not relatable.
Yeah.
Like,
no.
Yeah, I've also been really fucking bored and drifting and didn't really want to do anything besides go home from school and play video games. Yeah.
Sure.
That's not... I wouldn't read
a book. That's not an interesting story.
Yeah, I wouldn't watch a movie about me.
Yeah, my life was boring. I'm not going to watch a movie or play a video game about it. I'm sure as hell not going to talk about it nice on my podcast. Like, my God. When I was 14, I had, like, shit for dick to do. There was nothing to do where I live, okay? And it's like, cool. You're just like every other 14-year-old. Okay? Why should I care?
It's like, oh, what do you want to do this weekend? I don't know. Do you want to fucking go to the ice cream place that has DDR again? Because that's all we can do. That's only
all we have going on in our lives.
The only hobby we have is playing, like, yeah, I've literally been there where the only thing I really had going was video games and going to a local arcade.
Yeah, that's it.
It was fun at the time, but it is not a compelling story.
It's like if I've already lived this, why the hell would I want to play it?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I understand the, like, shitty ennui of being a teenager in a really boring fucking town. Why would I want to play a video game about it? Like, couldn't you just give me all these mini games? I would have preferred just like a pack of these mini games.
Yeah,
more fleshed out with like a couple levels between like all of them. And I would have preferred that.
And like you really don't even need like the thing. Okay, you know what I just realized? What it is? They didn't give us enough to make a compelling narrative, but they gave us too much to make it just a framing device.
Yeah. That's exactly it.
If the whole thing was just he's a bored kid and he's making observations about his town, and the observations are metaphors for the games, like the girl with the cool car, and is a metaphor for the game. Like if like Beating Heart was like, and here's the part of town that I don't even go down to because it's full of the bad groups, you know, the teenage, like the older kids or the college dropouts that just get in fights, and now you're playing a beat 'em up.
Cool.
That's
it.
That's a framing device.
That's all you need. You don't really need anything else.
Yeah. Instead, we got like just a bit more than that
to make this kid just insufferable. Like, would you please stop bitching? Oh my god, I am way too old to put up with like. I'm 14 and I live in 1985 and I'm bored. Ronald Reagan is president. I don't know what to do with my life. Where? Okay.
You know what?
You gotta give me more than that.
Your mom was right to ground you from video games.
You deserve to be grounded from video games. If all you're gonna do is whine about how the only thing you can do with your life is play video games, go join a fucking baseball team or something.
Yeah, go outside.
Get off my yard. Get out of my yard, you damn kids. It's horrible. It's just like cool. It's you're playing whiny teenager simulator.
Call your friends, go ride your bikes, and find a dead body in the woods like normal kids.
Like every other kid has done in their life. I did it.
Go find a house that's haunted or like has an evil monster in it.
Or even just fucking go find like an abandoned house and break some windows.
Yeah.
That's what we used to do when I was a kid. My god. Like, just go do something that isn't like whining in an arcade. Or go to your friend's house and play video games. Yeah. Are you seriously telling me you don't have a single friend who doesn't have like an NES and you guys can play like some fucking Mario or something? Come on. Horrible. Horrible.
It's like the whole nostalgia thing is like the funny thing is I kind of realized this today. We're getting to the point where 80s nostalgia doesn't work anymore because it's 40 years ago.
Yeah, I'm already at that point. Like, I like synthwave music, and I think neon colors are neat. I like those. I like pixel art, because I think pixel art is pretty, and it's a lost art. We really need, not really a lost art anymore, because there's so many fucking pixel art video games, but it was for a while there. And, it's like, those are cool things. Those are kind of hallmarks of the 80s. But, like, the specific nostalgia for, like, the actual 1980s, like Stranger Things and It, and all that stuff, it just makes me cold. I don't really feel anything for it, because, like, I wasn't even born.
Yeah. We're like the 80s like throwback that happened like 10 years ago like made sense. It was a bunch of 30 to 40-year-olds who were like, God, I miss my childhood, and it was partially fine and partially not fine because you got some good content out of it and you also got some bad content out of it.
Right, of course.
But we're past that. We already rebooted everything in the 80s. We're out of 80s. This is my theory. My theory is that nobody is nostalgic for the 90s, really. I mean...
Like 90s cartoon... Like, they just put out that Rocko's Modern Life special, and that's cool. Mm-hmm. But, like, nobody is actually nostalgic for being alive. Like, all the media and stuff in the 90s was cool. But, like, living in the 90s was abysmal unless you were just at the very top of the ladder. Like, Bill Clinton was just like, hey, let's kick the teeth out of, like, all of the United States, like, social services and the safety nets and all that stuff. So if you're at, like, the bottom of the ladder, have fun.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a rough 30 years, and it's never gonna get any better. And it all started in the 90s with Clinton. And it's like, man, that's right. Being alive in the 90s blows. Nobody wants to remember that, so you either have to be nostalgic for the 2000s, which is objectively even worse than the 90s. Oh, God. The idea of being nostalgic for the Bush years makes me want to walk in front of a bus. Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, we have to stay in the 80s until we get to like the 10s, and then we can start being nostalgic again.
And even then, I mean, sure, the early part of the 10s was like fine, kinda, I guess. But now look, we live in hell. So like, you really can't be. We are basically, I think that's my greater theory of everything, is that like the world got worse in the 90s and it's never gonna get any better, so our nostalgia has to be centered around the 70s and 80s, because that was the last time we had even like the thinnest veneer of things being okay. Things weren't okay, make no sense. I mean, the 70s were fucking, I mean, like Mad Max is a documentary, okay? Yeah. About the 70s. And the 80s were just like Reagan being Reagan, that, you know, God, I'm so glad Reagan's dead.
But we were all high on cocaine back then, so we didn't care. Yeah.
God, nobody realized how bad all of their ideas were, because everybody was on crack or cocaine. So like, you could just ignore it.
I was thinking about this because I was thinking about like, 80s nostalgia and all that, and I desperately wish I could transplant audio into a visual medium without just being text on screen.
Right.
Because I want the title card of this to be the scene from Hobgoblins, where Mike Nelson goes, "It's the 80s, do a lot of coke and vote for Ronald Reagan." Because that's what this game feels like. It feels like it's remember the 80s. The 80s were the last time things were good. And like, you're right, but also shut up. I'm sick of hearing about the 80s.
But the 80s, and I mean, like, that's the thing, is that the 80s really weren't the last time things were good. I don't think things have ever been good. And it's just like, man, I'm so tired of 80s nostalgia. For one, nobody is capturing just how yellow everything in the 80s was. I get it, like, shiny neon-colored pixel art is great, but nothing in the 80s was actually that pretty. It was all, like, mostly yellow. I've seen my mom's photos from when she was in high school. It's all yellow, everywhere. It's horrible. Like, I mean, like, God, what the fuck did the 80s have? The 80s had, like, Chernobyl and Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher, and everyone's like, man, remember the 80s? And I'm like, I'm trying to forget the 80s. God. Like, it's horrible. We're just stuck forever in, like, this is a really grim way to end this episode.
It is.
We are stuck forever in this loop of, like, our parents' nostalgia, because the other option is our own nostalgia, and it's like, yeah, sure, Toonami was cool. That's really all we got, man.
We didn't, like, what movie franchise are you going to reboot from the 90s? Like, we rebooted RoboCop, we rebooted Terminator, we did Rambo and Rocky again. We already did all of them. What do we have in the 90s to reboot?
We had that really bad Lion King remake.
I mean, okay, fine, Rocco and Zim were both really good, so.
They're from, but Zim was early 2000s.
It ended in 2001. I think it caught the cusp of 99. But I'm not sure.
No, shut up. Are you fucking with me? Invader Zim was a 90s property?
Okay, so.
Am I going insane?
Okay,
There's no way that's true.
I'm trying to roll back before I look this up, because I know for a fact the DVDs came out in 2004, because Jonan Vasquez kept repeating that and the audio commentary as a joke of how much time had passed. So it had to have been way before 2004.
Oh my god, if you're about to tell me that Invader Zim was technically a 90s property, I'm gonna actually kill myself.
Let me see if I can find when it aired.
God. We live in hell. That's all I'm realizing.
Okay,
I'm like
no, you know what?
8,000 years old.
No, I'm wrong. It was 2001.
Thank God. Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's still not that much better, but like, God in heaven, I refuse to believe that Invader Zim was a 90s property. Anyways, oh God, shut up. We're so old. We're so old, and we all just deserve to be buried in the shallowest of graves.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, it's like we have no choice but to be trapped forever in a loop of 80s nostalgia, because, like, our other option is to be nostalgic for the Clinton years, and God, fuck that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what, you want to talk about Sex in the City? You want to talk about Hillary Clinton? Tipper Gore? God, everything about that makes me want to be dead. Like, Bill Clinton just being disgusting on national TV all of the time. Bill Cosby was, like, relevant, and then we had to find out about him, and it's like, oh no.
There is no hope. Things will never get better.
You're fucked too. That's how we end this episode. Is Felix Biederman's rant from at the end of fighting in the Age of Loneliness, which is just like, what is it? He says, it's not just a problem in our idiotic blood sport. Everything you love will be subsumed by capital, and nothing will go untouched. It'll just get further and further monetized into meaninglessness. If you think this doesn't apply to you, don't worry. You're fucked too.
You know what? You've convinced me. Everything we just said is wrong. The kid who had the right idea. Just fucking drown yourself in video games. It doesn't matter.
Drown yourself in video games. It's the end times. God. It's just like, we're just going to be trapped forever in 80s nostalgia. Because then, anytime they do try to capitalize on, like, post-80s nostalgia, what do we get? We get the Iron Giant being a gun. Yeah. Even though that wasn't the fucking point of that movie.
So, like, you know what pisses me off the most about that particular thing?
Oh, God. Everything?
Well, no. It's not that, hey, look, it's the Iron Giant in this movie. No, that's some dickhead's, like, avatar in whatever fucking MMO world Ready Player One takes place in. So, that's not just, like, oh, the author of the book liked the Iron Giant, so he's in the movie now and he's a big thing. That's some asshole in universe missed the point of the Iron Giant.
That hard. I can't imagine anybody... That's the thing, is I can't imagine anybody in the real world actually... I mean, I guess Steven Spielberg did because he put the fucking Iron Giant in the movie. Like, I can't wrap my head around missing the point of the Iron Giant that hard. But what do I know? I clearly know nothing because Ready Player One did well enough, I guess. And it's just like, man... Brad Bird made that movie because his sister got killed by, like senseless gun violence. And it's like, now look, the Iron Giant's just a gun. That sucks. Fuck that. I hate things like this. Where it's just like, remember the 80s? Yeah, I remember the 80s. I wasn't even alive in the 80s. It was abysmal. Chernobyl should have just killed us all.
I do remember. What do you want to do with it? Nothing. I just want you to remember.
Cool, thanks.
Please remember, no advancing, just remember.
Yeah, that's it. No learning, just nostalgia. That's it, forever. Yeah. God. This episode turned grim. What happened?
It did. DuckTales is a good cartoon. The new one's really good. Watch DuckTales.
Yeah, except for the fucking fact that you can't play the DuckTales remastered game because we still live in, like, a capitalist nightmare.
I did.
Where it's, like, all your fucking digital copies of your games don't even belong to you anymore.
I did buy
Nobody is going to be nostalgic for 2019. If anybody's even still alive in 40 years.
I did buy the DuckTales game, like, the day before it went off. I did.
I should have. I didn't. We'll have to stream it at some point.
Yeah. So
we can maybe feel a little bit of joy.
It's pretty
the DuckTales
good.
cartoon is pretty good, though.
Yeah, the new DuckTales cartoon is pretty damn good. She-Ra's pretty good, too.
Oh, I didn't know you were watching She-Ra.
Yeah, I am. I'll talk about that next week. But, yeah.
Oh, right.
keep that in mind.
No, we have to keep talking about things that don't make me want to be dead.
Speaking of 80s nostalgia. But no, like, yeah, so there, you know what, on a positive note, yeah, there are good ways to do 80s nostalgia, and there are certain products that it's like, you can bring this back to a new audience, and it's good, because what they're doing is they're taking the property, and they're using it as a springboard for new ideas. They aren't just regurgitating the past. It's not, like, as much as I fucking love playing, like, beating hearts in this game, I'm way more excited for Streets of Rage 4 because one, it's a full-fledged game, and two, it fucking looks amazing and it looks like it looks like an advancement of Streets of Rage.
Right, yeah.
It's a step above.
It's so good.
I'm so fucking excited. I love the thing is, all of these games I played made me think, boy, I'd really love to play a full-fledged version of this that expands on the concept and does way more unique things with it.
That's why we gotta play River City Girls, too.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Also, speaking of 80s nostalgia, that looks really fucking good.
That looks really good, and it's not just like, hey, remember beat 'em ups in the 80s? It's like, hey, what if beat 'em ups in the 80s had like cool anime girls in it and like really also really good pixel art? Cool, I'm okay with that. That sounds like dope.
It's like I said, like, this game could have been really good, and it could have been a really, really cool coming-of-age story that's steeped in retro style, amazing fucking, like, Snatcher-quality pixel art that is just the most jaw-dropping visuals ever.
Oh my god, we should play Snatcher.
We should fucking play Snatcher.
Oh my god, can't we play Snatcher?
Absolutely. We'll add that to the ever-growing list of shit to stream. But no, like, this could have been just, like, an amazing coming-of-age story that is a great commentary on the kids who just kind of got lost in this time period.
Yeah, of course.
Because of the new shiny technology that came out that was, like, literally hypnotic. Like, I will say, like, this kid getting sucked into video games because they're completely brand new and nothing ever existed.
How cool would it have been if it was about like some kind of Polybius type shit?
Yeah, like you go to this fucking CD arcade and you play all these creepy, like when they got to like to Kill Switch, and I'm like, holy shit, this is like some real dark Polybius shit right here.
Yeah,
and
that would have been so dope.
That would have been great, and like. That you have all the ingredients for a fucking really, really great coming of age 80s throwback story that is a great commentary on all these kids who got lost in the waves of changing technology and are trapped and can't go anywhere. Like all the ingredients are laid out and they're all portioned for you. And they're all measured and it's all even and it looks great. All you gotta do is mix them together.
And you didn't.
And they didn't. And they
just served me a bunch of raw eggs and told me it was a cake.
Here's 2 eggs and a cup of flour and some brown sugar.
Cool.
Oh. Okay.
Thanks.
I mean...
Thanks.
Yeah. I can...
Yeah.
You didn't... They didn't... You know how the metaphor is always like, oh, it needed more time in the oven?
Yeah.
They didn't put this game in the oven at all.
That they did spend a really long time on making the decorations.
They did.
However that works.
Yeah. They put up all of the party decorations like immaculately and then forgot to bake the cake.
Oh no. That's exactly it, man. Such a shame. This game is beautiful though.
Yeah.
Just go look at screenshots of it.
Just fucking watch an LP of it just so you can appreciate the pixel art.
Yeah, because, I mean, like, The Runaway is truly magnificent. Like, as a gameplay sequence, it actually is extremely good, and they just kind of forgot to carry that through line through the rest of the game. Whoops.
The Runaway is also the only one that has, like, a narrative over it, and it's actually, like, really good, and it's like, oh, yeah, okay, I get it. This is tied to the story. And then the rest weren't.
Because it was like, I started this game and I was like, oh no, I'm not feeling anything. This is bad. If I'm not like feeling anything, because I'm a very, like I play video games, I feel things. But I was like playing this game and I'm like, crap, I'm not feeling anything. This is bad. And then I got to The Runaway and I was like, ooh, I'm feeling a feeling. And then it was over. And I was just back to feeling nothing. Whoops. Oh well. They can't all be successes, Ben.
I mean, like, you know what? That's the point of Indie Week, is that we try new things and we experiment, and this is, you know what? I'm happy. This is the first one that missed both of us.
It's true.
Like,
usually and actually it's really funny because we are usually like on the same page with loving things. Hilariously, we are also on the same page with disliking things. So,
like, and like, there's things where like, oh, I like this way more than you did, or vice versa, and it's like, so this is the first one where we're both like, didn't work, and out of all the indie weeks we've done, we were bound to miss one of them, and
it's true.
I'm glad we made it this far without.
We did. We got pretty far. I've had a couple of like genuinely life-changing experiences playing indie week games, so eventually we had to get it done.
But we managed to talk for an hour about it, and I feel pretty good about it.
I actually was, like, genuinely worried before we started this. I was like, am I going to be able to talk for an hour about this fucking game? Actually, yeah, it turns out it is, because I hate nostalgia. So, like, as a marketing device, I just can't stand it, and that's what this game is. It's not, like, trying to say anything. It's just like, hey, let's sell our video game based on 80s nostalgia. I hate that, so, Oh, well.
But
Is that it?
I think that's it.
Cool.
Yeah, so thank you, Visitor, for use of background music. You can follow me on Twitter at thegorgepodcast. You can follow Sara at radioinactivity. And you can email us at thegorgepodcast@gmail.com. And again, our Ko-fi is ko-fi.com/thegorge. And if you want a game that has a good narrative and strong characters, you can listen to Sarah's other podcast.
Aw, thanks. Hey, I'm in another podcast called Big Gay Nerds, where me and a bunch of cool queer friends get together and we play tabletop games. We try out lots of different systems. We have a lot of fun. This weekend, we are getting back to Blades in the Dark after a bit of a hiatus where we played a bunch of other smaller titles and kickstarted things, and that was fun. It was a good experimental time. We're getting back to Blades in the Dark, which is basically probably my favorite tabletop system, now that I'm thinking about it some more. Based on, like, 1800s kind of aesthetics, heists, and weird dark powers. It's extremely cool. You should come check it out. We're at Big Gay Nerds on SoundCloud, and you can find the links to the rest of our social media from there. Thanks.
All right, that'll do it for us.
Fuck Ronald Reagan.
Yeah.
Can I say that?
you were out that one like a bullet.
Fuck Ronald Reagan. I'm glad he's dead. I can't wait for Bill Clinton to die, too. Like... It's gonna be the best time ever. Fuck both those guys. I'm just on that shit.
You're right. Fuck them. I agree. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.